Hi, and welcome to our class today. I will be talking about Baddha Konasana, which is a pose, very essential pose where we sit with our feet together and come out. But it's also a pose that, if you have tight hips, it can be quite challenging. It can take a long time to get that pose to actually come to its more, advanced and finished state, which looks something like that. So let's go over a few ways to get to the place where we can practice this pose and learn how to release in the pose and hopefully open the hips and get to this place where the legs come down, the hips open, and you can really rest in a different way in this pose. And so I hope that this video is very useful to you and that you can use this to sit and relax. This Baddha Konasana is such a wonderful pose. It's one of the main poses, I would say, in a sequence. It's a pose that once you can do it at an more advanced level, or more open hips, I would say. First, we have this physical shape. Once we can get the shape to that place. It's a great pose to practice meditation and a really great pose to do a pranayama practice. It's a very quieting pose, an opening pose. So it's something that is, I think, worth practicing. And in terms of an asana practice or yoga practice, it's a really, really great pose to do when you have your menstrual cycle. It's a restorative pose. It's a pose that helps the health of the whole thing. So I'm going to show you today how to go about practicing it. So we're going to do 3 different methods, and we're going to use props. And so if you have props, you can use them, or you can use variations of what I have here. But please ask me questions. If you have any questions of how to set up your props and things like that, I'm more than happy to help you with on this live session. And if you're watching this after the live session's ended, feel free to leave comments and send me comments if you have questions on how to adjust a belt or how to do that. And I can, make a video for you, or if that helps. I am a little bit thrown out because my screen today, for some reason, I think YouTube has changed it. So now I'm being mirrored instead of having my reflection. So I'm looking at the screen and it's just strange. But okay. Let's get to the practice. So first of all, I'm going to show you how to do this without any props. Okay, so if you come to your Baddha Konasana and you come to the floor, so you come to your mat here, and maybe if you have very, very tight hips, this may be what it looks like for you. So sometimes more accurately like this, right? So then the back really hurts here. There's no way that we can bring these knees down. So knees stay up. There's a rounding on the back here, and it's just difficult and not a very pleasant pose. So number one, sometimes in the beginning, it's nice to have a wall support, so you can do this against the wall, and you can bring the feet, the heel as close as you can towards the body with both sides, and then press the soles of the feet together. All right. So maybe this helps a little bit, but this is not a good way to practice. So I'll explain why. So here what we want is we want the knees to be at the same level as the hips. So if the knees are above the hips, then we can sit here for ages and ages and nothing will happen. So there has to be that relationship where the knees are at the same level or below the hips, okay, below the level of the hips here. So if you're ever in a class and you have to sit in Baddha Konasana and you're sitting like this will not do anything for you. So it's not a correct way to sit. So again, we need to get these knees all the way down at the same level or below the level of the hips. So how do we do that? So step 1, so if you have nothing else, but you do have a block available, we're going to grab that block and you're going to add some height. So the nice thing about blocks is that they're stackable and you can customize the height to what you need. So let's start out with one block and see what that does. So go ahead and sit in that block. And then we put the soles of the feet together. And now when I bring my legs together down into the pose, what I notice is that my knees are at the same level as my hips. Okay, if I still have this kind of thing going on, then I would add a little bit more height. Okay, and then go ahead and you can just notice how easily this happens, right? So this is what you want. So sitting here will be beneficial for you to improve in this pose, but sitting with your knees up like that will not. Okay, so second very important point. If I'm sitting, especially when I'm sitting higher up like this and on two blocks, even one block, what you'll notice is that there's two different planes here. So you have this angle here, right, of my legs, and then I have the feet that are flat on the floor. So the feet are flat and the legs are at an angle. So this will cause unnatural torque to your knee and will eventually cause pain in the knee. So adding height like this will add. So what we have to do here is we have to lift the heels. So now everything in this is in the same line. See? So the feet, the heels. Here we have everything in the same angle versus this. Okay, so how do we do this? You can grab a towel, make a roll, and you place that here. Okay, so now you have a roll, and I'll show you a different angle of this so you can see it. And you support your heels here and keep the heels pressing into one another to protect the knees. So heels press against each other. I have everything on the same plane, and knees are at the same level or lower than your hip bones. Okay, so if we're following, let me know if we are all following along. Knees at the same level as the hips. Then we want to have, if we're on height, we want to have all of this on the same plane, meaning we might have to lift the ankles a little bit and put support underneath so everything's in the same line, and then really press the heels against each other. So that and when you press the heels against each other, then if you had two walls here at the edge of each knee, you never want to press the knees down towards the floor, you want to press them out. So if I had two walls here, I would want to push these away from each other, right? So pressing the heels together, push the knees away from each other. So push these blocks away, as if I was pushing them away with my knees. If I could push them with my knees, keeping the heels together. And now the work here is to soften the eyes, the ears, and the throat, and lift the chest, so that we're not curling down. So we're lifting the chest without rounding the back. All right, so if that was a lot, let's do it again, but I'm going to give you a different view so that you can see it from the side. Okay, so we'll start from step one. Here, we will notice here that we have quite a bit of a distance between the knee and the ground. Okay, and usually it causes the back to round. This is not a comfortable position, right? So this is not what we want. So what we'll do, first thing that we'll do is add a little bit of height underneath the sit bones. So grab a block. We add some height, then bring the feet together, heels touching. And see if then, here's my hip, see if the knee is at the same level or lower than your hip. So if you're still here, we're going to add even more height. Okay, we are. So here it is with a little bit more height, and I'll do, look at this so you can see the feet better. Okay, so here we're starting to see that it's really easy to keep the knees lower than the hips and the heels together. But what we notice here is that the feet are on sort of like a horizontal plane here, and here I have this angle. What I want to do is I want to match it so that the heels are at the same angle as, you know, this plane here of the legs. So I don't want to have this kind of relationship happening because it's going to cause a torque to my knee. It's going to damage the knee essentially. So we want to make sure you support the heel. And the way we can do that, one of the ways is you can roll up a mat or you can roll up a towel. Bring the foot as close as you can to the body so that we're not doing this, right? So bring it as close as you can. If this is as much as you can go, that's fine. Just make sure it's on the same plane. Bring it as close as you can and support the heel, lift the heel a little bit so that everything is on that same angle. All right, and here you strengthen the back by lifting the chest instead of having a rounded back. Right, so without pushing the forward ribs forward, just lift up, lift the chest, soften the eyes, the ears, and the throat. And there's your Baddha Konasana, so you can practice here. And you can, in the beginning, lean against the wall here so that you're preventing this from happening. And slowly you'll strengthen the back and start opening the hips here. So the action here is bring the heels together, push away through the knees, right? So you're creating space in the groin. So what I'm going to show you now next is a way to use the belt to create that sensation, really release any of this grip here in the groin so that you can open the groin and then start the process of improving in this pose. So here we go. Okay, so I'm going to grab my belts and I'm going to use one block here to show, but if you need 2 blocks, then do it on 2 blocks. And I'm going to come into my Baddha Konasana. And the easiest way to use a belt here is to just make a loop with your belt. Okay, so you're just looping the belt. Then you put it around you, so it's around your back. It's around the back like this. Sit on your block. Okay. Then bring this belt, making sure that the buckle doesn't touch any part of your body. We're going to place the belt underneath the feet like this, and we're going to tighten. So make sure when you're tightening the belt that the buckle stays in this negative space here so it's not touching your skin. It's very important. Okay, and it's nice if the belt doesn't have any twists in it. So this is one way to use the belt to support you in this pose. Okay, so here we are. So you can sit here and the work would be to soften your eyes, your ears, the throat, the root of the tongue. Lift the chest just how we've described it before, as if there were, 2 helium balloons inside the lungs that would just effortlessly lift the chest so that you're not poking your floating ribs forward. You're just allowing the chest to lift without any strain in the eyes, the ears, the throat. We're constantly refining the space in the ears, the softness in the eyes, the softness in the throat, in the belly, lifting the chest here. And then you can practice here. You can sit here, you can, watch, you can read a book or watch your favorite show, eat. So this is a pose you can do anytime. I'll show you what it looks like in the back. So here's the side. The back. So making sure that the belt is underneath the hip bone. So I do not want the belt here in my lower back. Push it down so you have it there. It's better if you remove these, Okay, like that. Okay, so this is the simplest way to add a belt. So now let's let's add a little bit more refinement, I guess, to learning this pose. So step 2 would be remove this belt, and you can leave this one and add more belts, but I'll just do the next step. So for the next step, I'm going to need 1 belt. If you have 2, we can use 2 also, because we can do both legs at once, or you can do them one, you can do them separate. Okay, so go ahead and sit in your Baddha Konasana pose. So sit on your height. If you need a height, then bring something for your heels. That there. Come into this Baddha Konasana pose by bringing heel with heel here. You're touching and you're keeping a little bit of pressure right here. So if you were to put your finger, you would really feel a squeeze. Okay. And bring these feet as close as you can to your body. Okay. So we're going to grab the belt and we're going to have it in a loop again. Okay. So I'm going to have to tighten the belt here. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that the little end here of the belt, when I put it on, I'm going to want it in a way that I can tighten this belt towards my body. So make sure that you line it up so that the buckle and the loose end is coming towards you, right? So that you can tighten. So I'm going to put this on around my body, and I want the belt here to be below my hip, so it's not on the waist, it's below the hip, and it goes around the knee, making very sure that this buckle is not touching any of the bony structure of my knee at all. It has to be on the outside of my thigh. So buckle on the outside of the thigh, and the tail end pointing towards my body, not pointing out, okay? So here we are, and I'll show you the backwards view of this also in just a second. So here's what it looks like. I have the belt underneath the hip bone, near the groin, and then this belt comes around the knee. So I'm going to lift that leg, and I'm going to tighten the belt, okay, and then tighten even more, so that it's kind of tight, giving me some resistance. Do it a little bit more. Make sure that the belt is not pushing the kneecap forward or down. It's right in the middle. And then I'm going to break the belt. This is going to instantly remove any tension that I have here in the groin, and it's going to allow me to really push that knee out towards the belt. And then lift. So let me show you this process with the view of the back so that you can see what I'm doing here behind the knee. And you want this belt to be as parallel with the floor as I can. So here it's a little bit of an angle. So make it, especially the back, I want it to be as parallel to the floor as I can. Still pushing heels against heel and the knee against the belt, pushing that away. And you feel an immediate release. And then what we do, I'm going to show you the other side, but then we put both belts. And so we're doing this to both belts, really opening the hips, releasing any tension that you have here, starting that process of really releasing, opening, and getting some space in the hips. It relieves a lot of back pain, hip pain. It's a pretty incredible way to practice this pose. So let me show you the back. Come a little bit closer. And here we go. So I come and I sit in the pose, bring my heels together, and I put the belt on so that I can tighten it this way. I want this motion of the belt, right? I never want to tighten the belt in the front because it's going to bring this outer skin of the leg towards the front, and that's damaging to the knee. So it has to have the sensation that the skin is coming from the inside of the leg to the outside like this. So very important to tighten the belt this way, okay? So put it here underneath the hips, lift the knee a little bit. You might want to loosen the belt and place the belt around the knee. And then make sure that the belt is relatively parallel to the floor so that I don't have this going on or, some kind of distortion there. And then I'm going to lift the knee and I'm going to tighten the belt, making sure that no part of the buckle is ever touching the knee area. So when I, want to keep it here or, even here is fine. So I tighten it enough that I have a little bit of resistance, and then I tighten by keeping the contact with the heels. I stretch the knee as if I wanted to, break the belt. Okay, and then I lift. So you can see you get an immediate relief here on this tightness. And when you practice this, of course, soften the eyes, the ears, and the throat. So I hope that you can see that. And now I'll show you with both belts. So I will do the same thing on both sides. All right, and then you can sit for the practice of this is if you have your practice, you can add this at your sequence, your daily sequence, or you can practice this, at any time, even after dinner or after lunch, and you can start sitting for a minute with your belts, and every day you can add 5 seconds. Probably the longest I've stayed on this maybe was 4 hours. That was enough. But you can build it up so that you're not, at any point suffering through this. Should be, nice. All right, so put the other belt on. And you notice, the belts sort of lose the tightness, so you can increase the tightness a little bit. Okay, there we go. And I want them a little bit lower so they're not below my hips. And there we go. So like that. And pressing the heels together. So this releases any of the pressure in the lower back. So you can sit here longer. You might have to adjust the support underneath your heel, and you can put a sticky mat under your feet so they don't start sliding out, or put that initial belt that we put around the foot so that your feet don't start skipping. But this would be a really, really great way to practice, to release, to open the hips, to start strengthening the back, as you can stay here for a very long time. You feel the sit bones grounding onto your block. And take a few breaths here where your eyes, ears, and throat are soft. All right, and so the last way that I'll show you today, there's so many ways that you can practice this, but the last thing that I'll show you is with weights. And so when you start practicing this pose, you see all kinds of information, and I would really emphasize never to put weight on your knees. So never, ever, ever have anybody stand on your knees, push your knees down. Sometimes with your hand like this, fine if it's a little bit, but this is not the correct action. The correct action is to put weight here, nearest to the groin, and never near the knee. And if you are going to put weights, make sure that you're supporting the knee underneath the weight. So what I mean by that is supporting the knees like this. Right, so the same height on both sides, or if one leg is much tighter and it's like this, you're going to have to add more height, obviously, but make sure that the knees are supported first, underneath the knees, and especially, behind here, the thigh is not necessarily just the knee, but this back part of the thigh. so that it's supported, grounded, and it can really take on the weight. And then you add your sandbags. So I have pretty heavy sandbags. Okay, so then you start putting on the weight on top of your leg, supported leg, but make sure that you're breathing and that your breathing doesn't become labored or that you're not cutting circulation anywhere. So I'm going to place these closest to my hips. So I'm not putting these on the knee. And same thing with the other side. So now I feel huge relief. When you place the weights, you should have the feeling that it's a really, really nice sensation. It's a really grounding sensation. It opens up your breathing so that you can breathe. You don't have to have the belts to put on the weights. You can do it without these belts. But you do have to have the support underneath the knees always when you are doing the weights. So what you may want to try when you're doing weights is to reduce the height and see what happens. So I'm going to show you that now. So I'm going to remove the belt. And
where's your car?
oh, Hafa has it.
Huh?
Hafa has it.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought you were gone.
Okay, see you in a minute. Okay. Okay, my car is missing. So when your teenage kids start driving, then your car disappears. Okay. So I'm going to reduce the height here underneath my sit bones. And I'm going to bring my feet back. And if your feet if they keep escaping, then go ahead and put the belt. So if your hips are so tight that that this is difficult, that you don't have this range, then stay on that same height. But if you check out with your teacher and you can go a little bit lower. If you're not sure, please check. Then go ahead and go a little bit lower. Make sure that you have the supports for underneath your knees. So go ahead and, without holding your breath, place the weights right near the groin. Okay, and then press the feet together. So press the heel together, the feet together. If your foot is open, like the feet are open like this, it's okay. But the heels should touch. So this or this, the heels should touch. Add a little bit of weight. Add a little bit of height underneath the sit bone so that you can untuck your pelvis a little bit, so that you're not tucking. You can untuck, which means you create a little bit of an arch in your lower back. Okay, and then place the weights. And make sure still that your knees are at the same level as your hips or lower, so that you're not bringing the knees up. And there you are. You can practice Baddha Konasana like this. Lifting the chest, softening the eyes, ears, and throat. And with every breath, you go into the hip, see where it's gripping, and breathe into that tightness. So your practice can be, you ask the mind to draw a boundary, imaginary boundary around the tightness in your hips. So maybe it's the whole entire hip. And then start breathing into that boundary. And get your mental Sharpie, draw that boundary, start breathing into that boundary, and see if any, millimeter or half an inch or eighth of an inch of that boundary starts shrinking as you start breathing into the boundary. As that boundary starts shrinking, you can ask the mind to redraw it. And slowly you can start releasing the knees further, and further, and further. The knees are coming out, but there is a release which just lowers the legs. So in the beginning, it's more difficult, and slowly you start getting to know what kind of grips you have in your groin, in your legs, in the back that cause this tension to just hold the hips closed and tight. And you start breathing slowly through the tightness, and you start just releasing. So it's a practice of releasing. All right, and if you have to do this work with your back against the wall in the beginning to start strengthening your back, go ahead and use the wall. So do maybe one day with the wall, one day without the wall. So, the just trying to hold the spine in its normal curve, which we call straight, but it's not straight. It's normal, healthy curve, is a good exercise too. As long as there isn't any strain and that you can breathe freely, you can do it. Okay, so this wraps up our Baddha Konasana mini workshop. I hope that you liked it. I hope that one of these methods works for you so that you can start opening the hips and allowing those knees to just push out, and the space created, and have the legs come down with that. In doing that, not adding any more tension to the eyes, the ears, the throat, the belly area. So I hope that you liked it. Please write down in the comments anything that spoke to you, anything that you think can help somebody else, and you can even tag like where the minutes are. That would help anybody else watching this video, and it would also help me. I would appreciate that very much. I will see you next week. If you have any requests for classes, please let me know. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.